Hello everyone. Today we're doing lesson 95. I am oneself united with my Creator. And the correlating chapter text of chapter 9, the acceptance of the atonement, section 4, the Holy Spirit's plan of forgiveness. Thank you for joining us today. Let us begin. Alex?
The Holy Spirit's plan of forgiveness. 1. Atonement is for all because it is the way to undo the belief that anything is for you alone.
You starting with the lesson?
No. This is the chapter text. The acceptance of the atonement, section 4, the Holy Spirit's plan for atonement, plan for forgiveness.
Plan of forgiveness.
First paragraph starts with, atonement is for all because it is the way to undo the belief that anything is for you alone. Okay. To forgive is to overlook. Look then beyond error and do not let your perception rest upon it, for you will believe what your perception holds. Accept as true only what your brother is, if you would know yourself. Perceive what he is not, and you cannot know what you are, because you see him falsely. Remember always that your identity is shared, and that its sharing is its reality. You have a part to play in the atonement, but the plan of the atonement is beyond you. You do not understand how to overlook errors, or you would not make them. It would merely be further error to believe either that you do not make them, or that you can correct them without a guide to correction. And if you do not follow this guide, your errors will not be corrected. The plan is not yours because of your limited ideas about what you are. This sense of limitation is where all errors arise. The way to undo them, therefore, is not of you, but for you.
That makes sense. So it kind of harkens to what we were talking about yesterday about you're not the one that does the correction. You get guidance from another source.
Actually, I think we had that conversation this morning, but yes.
Yeah, but I was referring to the conversation. So
last night.
So what it's saying here is that you need a guide that can guide you to the corrections, even though it's still your choice to choose to believe it or not.
I agree with that because it's sometimes hard to see what the truth is. It's one thing for me to look up at a wall and look at some wires and go, well, if that wire's that long, those wires must be that long too. But not everything is so clearly seen. There's lots of things that we don't see from the perspective that we're in.
Yeah. What did you call it? Tunnel vision.
Tunnel vision. Yes. The inability to see other people and how what you say and do, how that affects them. That's tunnel vision.
But that sounds like you're taking responsibility for what's affecting someone else.
Well, if you drive down a residential street with lots of children playing at 50 miles an hour, you might want to think about how that's going to affect the people that live there. Even if you don't hit a child, that could be upsetting for them. And you're not going to say, well, that's their problem that I'm driving recklessly down the road. So that wouldn't be taking responsibility for one's actions, would it?
You just totally confused me. Are you talking about you driving down the road or somebody else?
No, I'm talking about somebody driving down the road at 50 miles an hour, running stop signs, driving recklessly on a street where there's children playing.
Okay.
And how that's going to affect the parents when they see you drive that way, and how that's going to affect the children. And what if you hit a child? You can't just say, well, that was their fault for being in the street. I'm not going to take responsibility with what's happening with them. They're the one who chose to run out in front of my car.
Okay, I'm not. Oh, wow. That is totally twisted. When I was talking about responsibility, what I was speaking of is taking responsibility for their choices to think, say, and do as they are doing. To have concern about it, that's understandable. But to make yourself responsible for what another's doing when you have no control over that person, that's not your responsibility, is what...
Okay, so the person who drives down the street at 50 miles an hour is not his responsibility how he is affecting other people, their emotional states, or if he ends up killing a child, he can say, well, it's not my fault, it's not my responsibility that child ran out in the road.
I didn't say that, Alex.
You're alluding to that.
I'm not.
You're alluding to somebody can do whatever they want and not care about how it's going to affect others. Because you're saying that, well, other people are responsible for their feelings and you're not responsible for their feelings, so therefore you can do whatever you want, carelessly.
I did not say that.
What you said...
What I'm talking about is...
If you apply what you said to the person who drives down the street at 50 miles an hour, then
so
what you said doesn't work.
Let me understand this. What you're stating then is because that guy that drove down the road at 50 miles per hour last night, you are now responsible for whatever that man does in his life?
No, I'm not saying that
That's
at all.
what you just stated.
No, I didn't.
That you are now responsible for him and his choices to do.
No, I didn't. I never said that.
That's what it sounds to me like.
That's not what I said.
What you're saying.
That's not what I said.
Okay. Then make it for somebody who's totally stupid and unable to comprehend anything. Say it in really simple terms like I'm a fucking 3-year-old.
Okay. First, let me reiterate what you just said. What you just said was a person is not responsible for the
emotional reactions of another.
Right. So if I go get in my car and I drive down a residential street at 50 miles an hour with kids playing, and the parents see me and they get upset, I can just, based on that premise, I can say, well, I'm not responsible for how they feel. I'm not responsible for their feelings. They're responsible for their feelings.
Yeah, that could be said. It's like, just like when you started screaming at me the other day. It's like I understood you were upset about something else and it had nothing to do with me.
I never screamed at you.
Okay. Let me restate that then. When you started lashing out at me, when you were angry over something else that was going on. In those moments, I understood that whatever you were experiencing had nothing to do with me. And it was my choice to experience hurt feelings or to simply recognize that it had nothing to do with me. And however I chose to feel in that moment was my responsibility, and you had nothing to do with it. It was always my choice.
And it's the choice of those parents to be upset when somebody drives down the road at 50 miles an hour.
Exactly.
In front of their house.
Yes, it's their choice.
Right.
But it doesn't make anybody responsible for their choice to be upset. Just because somebody does something doesn't mean that they're responsible for it. It's like someone can drive down the road screaming and hollering right now, and if it pissed me off, then I'm the one with the misperception.
Okay.
So it's understanding that in some things, we are not responsible for what our brother chooses to think, say, and do.
Okay, you get that, folks? You can do whatever you want, wherever you want, to whoever you want, and you're not responsible for your actions in any way whatsoever.
That's not true.
And you're not responsible for the way other people think, feel, and respond to you for anything you do.
Alex, I never said that.
That's what it sounds like you're saying.
No, you are always responsible for your actions and what you choose to do.
Mm-hmm. That I know.
But you just told them that they're not responsible
No,
for their actions.
You're saying that a person is not responsible for
what their brother chooses
for what
to.
somebody else feels, thinks, says, and does.
Exactly.
So that means that you can do whatever you want, and however somebody else responds is not your fault. You have no responsibility in it. So you can drive down the road at 1,000 miles an hour if your car can go that fast. And if other people get upset, that's their problem.
It comes down to this thing with free will. As long as you are not infringing on another's free will to do as they choose, to think as they choose, to believe as they choose.
I'm not infringing on somebody's free will to drive down a residential neighborhood at 50 miles an hour, am I? Whose free will am I infringing on?
No one.
So I can do that all I want, and I'm not responsible for however anyone else thinks and feels.
Okay. Man, you are so angry right now.
No, I'm not.
Then what is that feeling that I'm feeling from you?
I don't know. Maybe it's your judgments.
No. Honey, that's projection.
No. Yes, you're right. Your judgments are projection. Yes, you're correct.
Yeah, but I'm not judging.
I think you are.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No, dear.
Yes, dear.
You are projecting that.
You are projecting that. That's why you're feeling something that's not there.
No.
Because it's all projection.
No, dear.
Yes, dear.
Now, recognize you were sitting there yelling just a minute ago.
No, I wasn't.
Okay, when you go back to watch the video, let me know.
Okay, I'll let you know.
All right, can you continue, please?
The atonement is a lesson in sharing, which is given you because you have forgotten how to do it. The Holy Spirit merely reminds you of the natural use of your abilities. By reinterpreting the ability to attack into the ability to share, He translates what you have made into what God created. If
you hear that? He translates the ability to attack to the ability to share. Interesting.
May I go on now?
Please continue.
If you would accomplish this through Him, you cannot look on your abilities through the eyes of the ego, or you will judge them as it does.
Mm-hmm.
All their harmfulness lies in the ego's judgment. All their helpfulness lies in the judgments of the Holy Spirit. The ego, too, has a plan of forgiveness because you are asking for one, though not of the right teacher. The ego's plan, of course, makes no sense and will not work. By following its plan, you will merely place yourself in an impossible situation to which the ego always leads you. The ego's plan is to have you see error clearly first and then overlook it. Yet how can you overlook what you have made real? By seeing it clearly, you have made it real and cannot overlook it. This is where the ego is forced to appeal to mysteries, insisting that you must accept the meaningless to save yourself. Many have tried to do this in my name, forgetting that my words make perfect sense because they come from God. They are as sensible now as they ever were because they speak of ideas that are eternal. Yeah. Bullshit.
Oh, honey, I love you.
I don't think Jesus knows what the fuck he's talking about.
No, Alex, what's happening is that you're standing in judgment of it all because you don't want to understand it.
Whatever, fuck off.
Okay. I love you, though. I do. So, as we were talking about the other day, where when it comes to correction of a brother, it's the sharing. He turns what would be an attack into a sharing instead. So instead of you trying to correct your brother, you share with them instead, so they no longer feel attacked. When you come from the perspective of personal experience, in the sharing, it helps your brother to understand they are not alone in the things they experience. It helps them to see that someone else is like them. And Holy Spirit will reinterpret everything and use it for His will. So what can be an attack, He will change to a sharing. And it's our choices to continuously believe in the things we've been taught to believe that are true. All the things that we're choosing to believe that are true. That keep us in this constant spiraling circle, chasing our tails, thinking we're doing something wrong, getting frustrated and angry because things aren't as we want them to be. And we thrash around kicking and screaming like 2-year-olds because we're not getting our way. That is what our ego has us doing. Searching out there in the world for all these things that we think we want and need. Giving to get. And it has us standing in judgment of God and Holy Spirit constantly. Please continue.
Forgiveness that is learned of me does not use fear to undo fear, nor does it make real the unreal and then destroy it. Forgiveness through the Holy Spirit lies simply in looking beyond error from the beginning, and thus keeping it unreal for you. Do not let any belief in its realness enter your mind, or you will also believe that you must undo what you have made in order to be forgiven. What has no effect does not exist, and to the Holy Spirit, the effects of error are non-existent. By steadily and consistently canceling out all its effects, everywhere and in all respects, he teaches that the ego does not exist and proves it. Follow the Holy Spirit's teaching in forgiveness, then, because forgiveness is His function and He knows how to fulfill it perfectly. That is what I meant when I said that miracles are natural, and when they do not occur, something has gone wrong. Miracles are merely the sign of your willingness to follow the Holy Spirit's plan of salvation, recognizing that you do not understand what it is. His work is not your function. Unless you accept this, you cannot learn what your function is.
Absolutely. Thank you. And so what it's talking about there, folks, is you have to give over everything to Holy Spirit and be willing to accept His guidance. To accept His guidance in everything. To ask for His guidance in everything. And it's your willingness that to follow the Holy Spirit's plans that allows the healing, allows the understanding to come. You know, everything we've been taught to think and believe to be true, all the shit that we've been taught that we're supposed to try and get, houses, cars, computers, jewelry, you name it. Piles and piles of money. All that crap has no fucking value, people. No value. And yet we're taught to idolize it. And to think that that's what we want. That's what we need. That is so far from the truth. It's laughable. We've been taught that we're supposed to go out from morning till night, work our asses off, just to scrape by. That is what we've been taught. To be a slave voluntarily. Think about that, folks. And that egoic belief system has us tearing at each other's throats, believing that God has abandoned us, believing that our brothers are trying to take everything from us, believing that the world is out to get us and kill us. It has us wanting to point fingers and place blame. And these teachers that tell you, don't look at that. Fake it till you make it. It's them that have caused most of the pain and suffering that is happening within the people out there in the communities. They're not understanding why they're in such pain. It's because they've blindly followed and believed what's being dictated to them. They're thinking that just by following this person or that person, or reading this or reading that, they're going to find the answer and they're going to be free. If they just blindly follow and believe. And they believe that's faith. It's not. Faith is having trust that when something comes forward and up for you, that the answer will be given. Faith is having trust that you are provided in all ways. Not just this way or that way, but in all ways. Faith is recognizing that you're the one that has been making all the choices, and if you are willing to step back and look and ask for the truth and ask for guidance and correction, that it'll be given to you. If you willingly, in your heart, truly ask for it and not think that you know what's best, because the thing that's coming up just doesn't sound right to you, doesn't feel like what you'd want to do. It's those kinds of things that keep us caught up in that ego thought system, thinking that we know what's going to be best. If you willingly go within and look at this shit with Holy Spirit and ask for His corrections, He will prove to you that everything that you were believing in of the ego is a lie and it doesn't exist. He can prove it to you if you are willing to look and to stop fighting Him. Please continue.
7. The confusion of functions is so typical of the ego that you should be quite familiar with it by now. The ego believes that all functions belong to it, even though it has no idea what they are. This is more than mere confusion. It is a particularly dangerous combination of grandiosity and confusion that makes the ego likely to attack anyone and anything for no reason at all. This is exactly what the ego does. It is unpredictable in its responses because it has no idea of what it perceives. If you have no idea what is happening, how appropriately can you expect to react? You might ask yourself, regardless of how you may account for the reaction, whether its unpredictability places the ego in a sound position as your guide. Let me repeat that the ego's qualifications as a guide are singularly unfortunate, and that it is a remarkably poor choice as a teacher of salvation. Anyone who elects a totally insane guide must be totally insane himself. Nor is it true that you do not realize the guide is insane. You realize it because I realize it, and you have judged it by the same standard I have. The ego literally lives on borrowed time, and its days are numbered. Do not fear the last judgment, but welcome it, and do not wait, for the ego's time is borrowed from your eternity. This is the second coming that was made for you as the first was created. The second coming is merely the return of sense. Can this possibly be fearful?
Yeah. So what that's speaking about is just what I was talking of. That the more you go within and get the corrections, the more you recognize the choices the ego makes. The more you start understanding how you've been taught to think, perceive, and judge. The prohibitions you've placed on yourself and everyone around you based on those choices to believe. You know, how the ego's responses are unpredictable. Things might be fine one minute and then out of control the next. And the ego constantly has us wondering what our function's supposed to be. And in everything, we're here to understand who we are. We've been told we're supposed to be this, we're supposed to be that. And when we try to be this and that, we find it doesn't feel right, it doesn't work. So we are constantly trying to figure out who we truly are. And that's what this is helping us to do here. Is to let go of all that craziness we've been taught and to start thinking logically again. Without fear as our catalyst. Please continue.
10. What can be fearful but fantasy? And who turns to fantasy unless he despairs of finding satisfaction in reality? Yet it is certain that you will never find satisfaction in fantasy, so that your only hope is to change your mind about reality. Only if the decision that reality is fearful is wrong can God be right. And I assure you that God is right. Be glad then that you have been wrong, but this was only because you did not know who you were. Had you known, you could no more have been wrong than God can. The impossible can happen only in fantasy. When you search for reality in fantasies, you will not find it. The symbols of fantasy are of the ego, and of these you will find many. But do not look for meaning in them. They have no more meaning than the fantasies into which they are woven. Fairy tales can be pleasant or fearful, but no one calls them true. Children may believe them, and so, for a while, the tales are true for them. Yet when reality dawns, the fantasies are gone. Reality has not gone in the meanwhile. The second coming is the awareness of reality, not its return. Behold, my child, reality is here. It belongs to you and me and God, and is perfectly satisfying to all of us. Only this awareness heals because it is the awareness of truth.
Yes. So, what can be fearful but fantasy, and who turns to fantasy unless he despairs of finding satisfaction in reality? It's when we are in utter despair that we turn to any sort of escape we can. Escapism. The way we've been taught to think and believe has taught us to use escapism, to point fingers, place blame, and then to escape from what we are perceiving as reality around us. That we are victims, that we are being demonized constantly by the world and everyone around us, eaten inside by what other people say and think and believe us to be, because we're choosing to believe in those moments what their judgments are, because that's what we've been taught to do. Fearful to stand up and say, no, that's not who I am, but thank you for telling me who you are. In everything, we do have a choice on how we're going to react, how we choose to perceive, and how we choose to believe. And it's our choices that can set us free or bind us in a cage, limiting us to only what we can see right here in front of our face. Everything else is blocked from our view. As Alex said earlier, we get tunnel vision, and we can only see what we think we want to see. That was Chapter 9, The Acceptance of the Atonement, Section 4, The Holy Spirit's Plan of Forgiveness. Let's move on to the lesson of the day, Lesson 95. Alex?
Lesson 95. I am one self, united with my Creator. Today's idea accurately describes you as God created you. You are one within yourself and one with Him. Yours is the unity of all creation. Your perfect unity makes change in you impossible. You do not accept this, and you fail to realize it must be so, only because you believe that you have changed yourself already. You see yourself as a ridiculous parody on God's creation, weak, vicious, ugly, and sinful, miserable and beset with pain. Such is your version of yourself, a self divided into many warring parts, separate from God, and tenuously held together by its erratic, capricious maker to which you pray. It does not hear your prayers, for it is deaf. It does not see the oneness in you, for it is blind. It does not understand you are the Son of God, for it is senseless and understands nothing.
Wow. It's true. We're taught to see ourselves as a ridiculous parody of God's creation. Limited, small, infinitesimal, weak, unable to think for ourselves. That is what we are taught that we are. That we need to be handheld and told what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. Or we just won't be able to do anything. We won't be able to take care of ourselves. we're not intelligent enough to know that that's a cliff or that's fire. We've been regulated into stupidity with prohibition after prohibition after prohibition. And we envelop ourselves in all of these rules and beliefs that we're supposed to do this and we have to do that, and this is what our role is supposed to be because we're female, we're male, we're this, we're that. And it's that kind of crap that has caused us to begin to kill each other. To believe that our brothers are out to kill us. It has taken us into this blind darkness of not seeing what's there in front of us anymore. We've been walking around with blinders on, folks. Blinders. And every time those blinders start to drop some, we get afraid and we beg for somebody to come put more blinders on us. Think about that. How many times have you gone crying to this person or that person, begging them for advice on what to do with this situation and that situation? This relationship, that relationship. And when you follow it, all it does is cause you more pain and misery. Please continue.
We will attempt today to be aware only of what can hear and see, and what makes perfect sense. We will again direct our exercises toward reaching your one self, which is united with its creator. In patience and in hope, we try again today. The use of the first 5 minutes of every waking hour for practicing the idea for the day has special advantages at the stage of learning in which you are at present. It is difficult at this point not to allow your mind to wander if it undertakes extended practice. You have surely realized this by now. You have seen the extent of your lack of mental discipline and your need for mind training. It is necessary that you be aware of this, for it is indeed a hindrance to your advance. Frequent but shorter practice periods have other advantages for you at this time. In addition to recognizing your difficulties with sustained attention, you must also have noticed that unless you are reminded of your purpose frequently, you tend to forget about it for long periods of time. You often fail to remember the short applications of the idea for the day, and you have not yet formed the habit of using the idea as an automatic response to temptation. Structure, then, is necessary for you at this time. Plan to include frequent reminders of your goal and regular attempts to reach it. Regularity in terms of time is not the ideal requirement for the most beneficial form of practice in salvation. It is advantageous, however, for those whose motivation is inconsistent and who remain heavily defended against learning.
And that makes sense, because the more we, what's that saying? Practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
So when, like Alex has been so heavily defended, because
Projection.
No.
Projection.
No, every time that you say, this is bullshit, Holy Spirit doesn't
That's not defense. That's calling bullshit when I see bullshit.
Okay. Well, yet Okay. So you had said yesterday that you felt anger, correct?
Correct.
And anger is a defense, correct?
Incorrect.
Really?
Really.
Because I thought in here...
Anger can be used for attack.
Mm-hmm.
It can be used for defense. It can be a response to pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anger can come up for a lot of reasons.
Yes. So what I was trying to say here was that when you were talking about the anger, it's like it can be used as a defense to
It
not...
can be used as a defense, but just because there's anger does not automatically mean that I'm defended.
Okay.
Or trying to defend myself in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
The only thing I'm trying to do is
Mm-hmm.
come to the truth.
Okay.
To remove fear and
Mm-hmm.
come to the truth.
Okay. So...
And when I hear untruth on something that I blindly followed and believed for so long, I get angry. Now, after last night, I don't feel quite so upset when I run across this untruth because I looked at my misperception. And my misperception was in believing that Jesus knows what he's talking about. So when I'm calling bullshit now, I'm just calling bullshit without the anger behind it. Yet you were projecting last night and me calling bullshit and being angry onto me tonight.
Okay. 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 You're absolutely right, Alex.
Oh, good. Now you're actually listening to Jesus and what he says to do.
No, I was making a joke. I was making a joke based on what we were talking about last night.
Yeah, you're making a joke based on bullshit of telling someone they're right when you think they're wrong.
No, it was more of trying to lighten you up a little.
You want to light me up a little bit? Give me the truth instead of bullshit.
Okay. The truth, as I understand it, Alex, is you were picking and choosing because you blindly followed someone and everything that they said sounded so good to you that you wanted it to be true so badly. And when they fell off that pedestal that you put them on, you didn't want to accept it. And then when everything that you were listening to was giving you conflict and pain inside, that everybody out there was saying to you, all those other teachers, it made you even more angry. It made you keep thinking about committing suicide because they kept telling you you were doing everything wrong.
No, this course made me think about committing suicide because it leads one astray. It leads one to believe that you're just going to wake up and this is all have been a dream and all an illusion and none of this is real.
See, and that's not true because it's had the exact opposite effect with me.
Well, then I guess you're doing everything right and I'm doing everything wrong.
It's not about right and wrong. It's about holding on to the beliefs we've been taught and not being willing to look at them and let them go.
Okay. All right. You know everything, Sabrina.
No, it's not that I know everything, but I do listen to what I'm being told within.
Great. And I don't, apparently, according to your judgments.
No, Alex, it's not judgments. It's an observation, a lot of this.
So you observe that I don't listen to inner guidance and you do.
I love you. Because all they're saying is point at the cord. It was being pointed out to you that one night and you chose to ignore it and got angry at me about it, lashed out at me.
I didn't get angry. I raised my voice because you couldn't understand me. And so often when one perceives that another is not understanding, they raise their voice because there's a perception that you're not hearing. And by raising one's voice, it makes it easier to hear.
Yeah.
In hopes that you would hear what I was saying.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It's like I was seeing the truth that cord could fit. And you were yelling at me that I didn't know what I was talking about, that it wasn't going to fit, it was too short. And you told me just to shut the fuck up.
No, I didn't.
Actually, you did.
No, I didn't. You kept telling me you didn't understand, and I kept repeating myself, thinking that you weren't hearing me, and so I raised my voice.
Yeah, because you kept saying it wasn't going to fit, and I was like, but it will fit.
Do you have a point to all this?
The point is we pick and choose what we want to believe. We pick and choose in any given moment the things we are going to experience, what we're going to do. And in everything, it's when we want to go with our ego minds, we get nothing but chaos. It's that picking and choosing what the ego has taught us and not questioning it. Why am I getting so upset about this? Why am I getting angry about this? What is it that I'm thinking here that makes me think that I need to yell to make her hear me better? She's saying she's not understanding, not that she can't hear me.
See, what I see is that you do the exact same thing. That
Okay.
You don't necessarily pick up on somebody's feelings. You are triggered by raising a voice and you automatically believe and project that someone is angry.
No, not always. It's
Not
like,
always,
not
but
always.
you do it.
I don't know if I do or don't.
You hold yourself with this belief that you see everything in the absolute true light of what it is. And I see that that's not true at all.
That's not true.
I see
That's
that
not true,
you
Alex.
judge people all the time falsely for what they do not do because you project your beliefs on top of them.
It's not
of
true.
who they
I
are and
ask
what their
everything.
intentions are.
I ask constantly. I don't sit there and judge everyone.
Well, you clearly do, because you've judged me several times as being angry when I wasn't angry. And you've judged me several times as being defended when I wasn't being defended.
Okay. Okay. The point in all of this, Alex, is that the beliefs we hold are what delay us in healing. As it was saying right there in the thing, the Holy Spirit is not delayed in his teaching by your mistaken beliefs in who you think you are. And the only thing that holds you back is your unwillingness. That is what it states there. It's our unwillingness to look at what we've chosen to think and believe. Can you please continue?
We will therefore keep to the 5 minutes an hour practice periods for a while and urge you to admit as few as possible. Using the first 5 minutes of the hour will be particularly helpful since it imposes firmer structure. Do not, however, use your lapses from this schedule as an excuse not to return to it again as soon as you can. There may well be a temptation to regard the day as lost because you have already failed to do what is required. This should, however, merely be recognized as what it is, a refusal to let your mistake be corrected and an unwillingness to try again. The Holy Spirit is not delayed in His teaching by your mistakes. He can be held back only by your unwillingness to let them go. Let us therefore be determined, particularly for the next week or so, to be willing to forgive ourselves for our lapses in diligence and our failures to follow the instructions for practicing the day's idea. This tolerance for weakness will enable us to overlook it rather than give it power to delay our learning. If we give it power to do this, we are regarding it as strength and are confusing strength with weakness. When you fail to comply with the requirements of this course, you have merely made a mistake. This calls for correction and nothing else. To allow a mistake to continue is to make additional mistakes, based on the first and reinforcing it. It is this process that must be laid aside, for it is but another way in which you would defend illusions against the truth.
Yeah. Does that make sense, what that says right there?
No, I didn't understand a word of it. I was too busy just trying to read it.
Okay. Well, what it's saying is that the Holy Spirit is not delayed in His teaching by your mistakes. He can be held back only by your unwillingness to let them go. Let us therefore be determined, particularly for the next week or so, to be willing to forgive ourselves for the lapses in diligence and our failures to follow the instructions for practicing the day's ideas, right? But it's that willingness to set aside all of those things, to set aside these mistakes that we've chosen to make in who we're going to follow, what we're going to believe. And it's like when we made the first mistake of trying to blindly follow another and then to blindly follow and believe with the book, it's like we put one mistake on top of another and on top of another, and we keep judging ourselves for that first mistake. And what it's saying is we have to put that shit aside and come at it with fresh eyes, with a fresh look, recognizing that it's okay. We can still do this. We don't have to continue with those beliefs we were holding. It's like here in paragraph 9 where it says, when you fail to comply with the requirements of this course, you have merely made a mistake. This calls for correction and for nothing else. To allow a mistake to continue is to make additional mistakes based on the first and reinforcing it. So it's like, what I'm getting is like when we first followed a teacher, we tried to follow blindly. And then when trying to read the book, we try to follow it blindly, believing that whatever it's saying is true.
You know, it really reminds me of telling a brother that he's right when he's wrong is allowing a mistake to continue.
Yeah.
Which means the course is contradicting itself.
Although it was just stating before that it's changing. When you hand it over to Holy Spirit, He takes what would have otherwise been an advice given to, oh, you need to do this, you should do that, which is like an attack telling them that you know better than them. Where when you share an experience, it allows them to see things in a different perspective and make their own choices and decisions on how they want to see it.
Yes, but that's what you said, not necessarily what the Course said.
That's my understanding of what the Course was saying. That's what I'm understanding it's saying to do.
Okay, well, it doesn't come across that way.
Okay.
Maybe because the one writing it didn't understand its original intention. I don't know.
Well,
But you don't tell a brother he's right when he's wrong, because that just simply...
that compounds the issue.
Yes.
You know, there's something that I have been able to understand, or there's an ability that I have always had to discern, to read between the lines and discern what the author was intending with things. And it has played out again and again and again that what I've discerned inside of something is the truth of it. It's like you've asked me, how the fuck do you know this shit?
Yeah. I think you're on the mark there. I think you're picking up on the original intention of Jesus's message,
And
even though the words that Helen wrote do not come across like the intention of the message.
And part of the problem with it is because words are but symbols of symbols, and they're not just twice removed, folks. They're more like 4 to 5 times removed. Okay? Because they have the meaning that you've been taught them by your family. Then you have the meaning that society teaches you it's going to mean, such as what the dictionary says it's supposed to mean. When you go into school and whatnot, they tell you this is what the dictionary's meaning of this is. But if you really think about it, they also twist that shit around too. Then you have the, hierarchical of society and government and the police that are giving meanings to certain things. Then you give your own meaning to shit that you're choosing to put onto it. And then the very last is the meaning God has given it. God and Holy Spirit. The true meaning. That's the 5th.
I don't think God uses words.
Well, He communicates in the ways we understand, and if it's through words, then that's what it is.
It just seems like words are so sloppy because they have so many different interpretations based on the viewer, like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just can't imagine that God would choose to use words if he wanted to communicate clearly. Like, you get guidance from your guides. Do you hear words?
So when I get guidance and stuff from my guides, when I get things like visions, it's like I get this, it's like everything around me disappears and I get this vision of this other place, other time, whatever. And then I start hearing words flow into my mind.
You actually hear words?
I hear words inside my head, like someone's inside my head speaking to me. And it's not necessarily hearing a verbal voice like you hear me now, but it's like I don't know how else to explain it. It's as if someone is talking to me in my own head, and they are explaining what it is that's being shown to me. And as I'm watching whatever the scene's unfolding, they're explaining to me what's happening. And I'm asking questions. I'm like, well, why is such and such doing such and such and such and such doing such and such? And they'll be like, because that is what they're trained to do or whatever. And I will be watching and listening and understanding that something's being taught to me here. An explanation on something that I've been questioning. And as I look at that and I listen, I get my guidance and the correction to a misperception that I've had. And it comes through clearly in a way that I can comprehend. Then I am to share that, to extend that to you all once I have an understanding of what it is I have been shown. Like the vision I shared about forgiveness. Forgiving. How it was about bartering, making items for barter to trade for things to survive. Food, clothing, whatever. Service for service. And how it was twisted to believe that you had to give to have someone else intercede for you as a third party between you and God. That they had the answers to everything and you needed to go to them. Pay them. And it was those kinds of things that I am looking at and sharing. That is being shown to me. So I hear voices, I see other places, other things as they're being shown to me. There's a lot of other things that go on too, but I can't explain all of it in the here and now. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you. So back to this. All of it is our choice to hold on to a belief that we want to believe is the truth, and having an unwillingness to set it aside and question it. To think that we have it all figured out and this is what it is. Please continue.
Let all these errors go by recognizing them for what they are. They are attempts to keep you unaware you are one self, united with your Creator, at one with every aspect of creation, and limitless in power and in peace. This is the truth, and nothing else is true. Today we will affirm this truth again and try to reach the place in you in which there is no doubt that only this is true. Begin the practice periods today with this assurance, offered to your mind with all the certainty that you can give. I am one self, united with my Creator, at one with every aspect of creation, and limitless in power and in peace. Then close your eyes and tell yourself again, slowly and thoughtfully, attempting to allow the meaning of the words to sink into your mind, replacing false ideas. I am one self. Repeat this several times and then attempt to feel the meaning that the words convey. You are one self, united and secure in light and joy and peace. You are God's Son, one self with one Creator and one goal, to bring awareness of this oneness to all minds, that true creation may extend the allness and the unity of God. You are one self, complete and healed and whole, with power to lift the veil of darkness from the world and let the light in you come through to teach the world the truth about yourself.
Yes. So, as you're doing these lessons, folks, it's coming to understand that you have to let go these errors, these mistakes you have been holding on to. It's like the more you hold on to them, the tighter you grip them, the more pain and suffering they give. You gotta let that shit go. You can't keep holding on to it, believing that that's going to be your salvation, because it's not. All it's doing is causing you more pain, more suffering. You know, you're one with all that is. You're one with your brothers. And it's your belief that you are other than that that keeps you at arm's length, that holds you separate from them. Please continue.
You are one self in perfect harmony with all there is and all that there will be. You are one self, the Holy Son of God, united with your brothers in that self, united with your Father in His will. Feel this one self in you and let it shine away all your illusions and all your doubts. This is yourself, the Son of God himself, sinless as its creator, with his strength within you and his love forever yours. You are one self, and it is given you to feel this self within you and to cast all your illusions out of the one mind that is this self, the holy truth in you. Do not forget today. We need your help, your little part in bringing happiness to all the world. And heaven looks to you in confidence that you will try today. Share, then, its surety, for it is yours. Be vigilant. Do not forget today. Throughout the day, do not forget your goal. Repeat today's idea as frequently as possible, and understand each time you do so, someone hears the voice of hope, the stirring of the truth within his mind, the gentle rustling of the wings of peace. Your own acknowledgement you are one self united with your Father is a call to all the world to be at one with you, to everyone you meet today, to be sure to give the promise of today's idea and tell him this: you are one self with me, united with our Creator in this self. I honor you because of what I am and what He is, who loves us both as one.
Thank you. So, what it's speaking of there, folks, is recognizing that you're perfect just as God created you. Everything you've been taught to think and believe to be true about you, about who and what you are, has been a lie. You're not a sinner. You're not broken. You're not any of that crap that they told you. You're not worthless. You're not a burden. You're not useless. You have a purpose. Ask and you will receive. But just because it's given to you doesn't mean that you actually accept it. There are so many times that He lays the truth before you and you still turn your back on it because it's not to your liking. It's not what you want it to be. It's not what you believe it should be. Do the work, folks. Please do the work. This is lesson 95. I am one self united with my Creator, and the correlating chapter text of chapter 9. The acceptance of the atonement, section 4. The Holy Spirit's plan of forgiveness. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sabrina Reyenga.
And I am Alex Reyenga.
Hugs, love, light, and blessings on your journey, folks. You are loved. We love you. Please be the light you were meant to be. Be the light we know you to be. Please choose to be the light. You are loved. You are needed. We love you.